Hello and welcome to another Matlab tutorial. In this tutorial I'll talk about structs and cells. Both structs and cells can be used to keep your workspace as organized as possible, so to keep your data as organized as possible. So I can start by creating a struct, and let S be that struct, which will be variable that will appear in my workspace, and let's create it by using struct. And inside the first argument should be its first field name, so let's call that first field name, and then the first field value. It could be, for example, a double, another struct, whatever kind of variable I want, but let's call it Peter. And we can add another field, and let's call that field age, and let's say 34, so Peter is 34 years old. And as you can see, it tells me that S is a struct with two fields, name and age. Let's try to access the name field of the structure S. So to do that, I'll type s.name, and the answer is Peter. It's a string that is called Peter. So if I want to access the age, so I'll type s.age, and the answer should be 34. Let's assume that we wanted to add another person to our database, and let's call the command again, and this time instead of just typing Peter, I'll put between brackets Peter, comma, Jane, and Jane is 21 years old, like this. If I press enter, it now tells me that S is a 1x2 struct that has two fields, name and age. So let's try to access Jane's age. So the syntax to do that should be S2, because I want the second part of the field, so the data referring to Jane, to the second person I typed in, dot age, and it gives me 21. Now say I wanted to access Jane's name, I'll just substitute age by name, and the answer is Jane. Now say I forgot to add another person, or that I wanted to get new data on my S structure, I can simply type s.name, so S3, in fact, dot name will be equal to, let's call it Oliver. So I'll add another person called Oliver in the third part of the structure. Now notice that I didn't add Oliver's age, so let's try to access it and see what happens. So to do that, I would do s3 dot age, and it gives me an empty answer. This means that, well, that field is empty, so I can attribute it to be 45. So if I try to access it now, it should give me 45 indeed. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to add another field instead of, well, just another person? I could type S. For example, let's call that field hair color, and let's define Peter's hair color, and to do that you simply insert dot hair color equals, and for example, brown. So now it adds a new field to my structure S that will contain Peter's hair color, and if I type s1.hair color like this, I'd get brown. Let's try to access Jane's hair color. The answers should be non-existent, so an empty answer, and indeed it's an empty answer. Now let's talk about cells. So with cells you can do the same thing with the structure, but instead of having fields called by their names, you just attribute numbers in them. So For example, to create a cell, I could use the command cell, and it will create me an empty cell of 2 by 3. So like a matrix, but instead of having just numbers in it, I can add names. So let's do the same for the previous example, but instead of using the field's name, we'll tell Matlab that the first column of this cell will be their names, the second column will be their ages, and the third column their hair color. So let's insert first the data for Peter. So C, and this time I'll have to access C with brackets, not parentheses. So C, the first row and first column should be called Peter. The first row, second column should be 34, and the first row, third column should be brown. And as you can see, C has now these values on the first row. Let's insert the data for Jane. So Jane, and we are on the second row now. Will be 21 years old, and she has light brown hair. So now in C we have essentially what we had stored in S, with the exception of Oliver, in which we'll add next. So let's add Oliver, and he should be stored in the third row, and his name should be stored in the third row and first column. So C31 equals Oliver, and it adds me a new line here with the first field Oliver and the others empty, because I didn't give any information on that. So this covers everything I wanted to talk about structures and cells. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and hopefully I'll see you in another one.